Troy Kearns, real estate investor, bringing it to you from New Orleans, Louisiana. And we picked this location to build our first second home and our first Airbnb. Boy, was it an exciting experience. So I had been flipping homes in the New Orleans area for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, since 2013. So around 2016, my wife talked me into getting one for ourselves. Imagine that. So we picked this house right here. Originally, it was a brick facade and a big green building that we basically had to tear all the way down. The only thing that's existing from what we started with is this concrete block right here and the front facade of the house, which was brick before. So pretty much everything else has been scrapped. And then what we did is we did a New Orleans architectural feature, which is called a camelback, because if you could look here down the road a little bit, you'll see how skinny the lots are. So back when the French first established New Orleans, in order to get more square footage, people would pop open the back because you were taxed on the size of your lot. So most lots in New Orleans are very narrow, but one big feature that we have here is off-street parking. So if you notice, most of the neighbors don't have it. We've got somebody there who has it, but everybody on this side of the street doesn't have it. They don't have it. So it's something that is definitely appealing. We also added a big security feature for our guests, which is a gate here. The reason why I really love this house is because I love the city. That's the first thing. I really enjoy myself here. And this was the first one that we ever designed and built ourselves. So we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but not really any sweat. A lot of thinking, a lot of design, and a lot of thought process. This is another architectural feature here is we have these gas lamps that just burn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're always burning. Doesn't really cost you any money. You get a ton of rain out here in New Orleans. So I had pretty much painted this thing like 10 or 15 times and it just kept buckling and buckling. So when I talked to my builder, he replaced the back part, which we'll show you later. Never put wood on these types of decks. If you're planning on holding on for a long time, this plastic works a lot better and it withstands the rain a lot better. Got a little side entry. The front door entry is that way. We actually never use it, but I'm gonna take you in this way right now. This is our main entry point, and this is kind of what sold me on the guy who built the house. I had found a house of his that he built. These are called cathedral ceilings. Then we added the lighting. I like lots of bright lights. We added this huge fan to circulate lots of air. And this is a 2,800 square foot house that really is built for like 3 families. We started as an Airbnb. We talked to you a little bit more about that. So originally, when we started with the Airbnb, the city of New Orleans had allowed it, right? It wasn't a problem. You just put your property on Airbnb, no problem. Then about 2.5 years in, politics got involved and the city decided unless you actually live in the property full time, then you're not allowed to Airbnb it. And I don't know how much sense that makes, but that's the way they designed it. Or if you have a commercial piece of property. So most Airbnbs have kind of gone away, and this property has turned into more of a long-term rental because we've had so many guests stay here over the last 3 or 4 years. We now rent it out at 30-day clips, 60-day clips, 90-day clips for high amounts of money. But that means there's less families coming through here, and that's not bothering our neighbors as much. So we've had to adjust, like you'll always have to adjust as these cities get involved with Airbnb and as technology changes. But for the most part, it's been, well, for all parts, it's been an outstanding investment. It's been something that we've been able to enjoy lots of family time with. We invite our friends down. It's really kind of our hub for having a good time. So my advice to you, if you're gonna start an Airbnb, start with your second home or maybe even your first home and make that an Airbnb. And we're gonna use the word Airbnb for VRBO, for Booking.com, for all things short-term rental. So Airbnb would be the Kleenex version of tissue, right? People just refer to it. Vacation rentals have been around for lots of years. They've been around since at least the early 90s because vacation rental by owner, which would be VRBO, has been around since I lived in Seattle, which was in 2005 and well before there. Airbnb took off, and that's when everybody really got involved in that short-term rental market because that allowed people to rent out their couches, renting out a room, and that's where Airbnb really sprout out and kind of gave everybody in the know of what's going on. I've stayed at several Airbnbs. I can tell you that if you want to get top dollar on your Airbnb, I'm going to go into details about how you can get top dollar, because this is what you want to learn about. In order to make sure that you make top dollar on Airbnb, you need to pick a market where people are going to visit, and you want to pick a market where the rent is high and the house price is low, is ideally. You wanna find the biggest gap on there, and somebody with low regulations. Mountain towns are great places. I know guys who have them in Big Bear, any sort of ski resorts. But how do you monetize it? How do you make the most money? So a quick rule of thumb is you're gonna make about 3 to 4 to 5 times your money as a short-term rental than you would as just a regular rental, right? So if I was to rent this house out, it would probably rent for between $2,500 a month and $3,500 a month. If I Airbnb it, we might get between $600 a night to as high as $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a night, just depending on demand, depending on if it's Mardi Gras, depending on if it's Voodoo Fest, depending on whatever it is. So you want to pick some place that has a lot of attractions, some place where people are going to want to come with their families, with their friends, get married. We had lots of places. I'll tell you what fed us. We had Tulane University right down the street, Loyola Marymount right down the street over there, and then all these festivals that people come to in New Orleans. We picked the perfect location. We're right off the parade route, so people can, if you come to Mardi Gras, you walk out the front door and you're there within 2 minutes. We're right off the trolley car on St. Charles. People could walk out, take a trolley, go to Audubon Park, go to Bourbon Street, whatever they want to do. They can go walk to Charlie's Steakhouse. That's been there since the 1930s. They can go to Pascal Manal's. These are all within like 2-3 minutes walking distance. If you are in an area where things are happening, that's where people want to be. Where people make mistakes with Airbnbs is they think that people are going to want to rent in bad and unsafe locations. Don't do that. Make sure that the location that you pick is someplace that you would want to stay. This really matters. I always say, you're not living there. Well, with Airbnb, I believe that the first way you should try Airbnb is making it your first or second home. So it's someplace that you would want to be. That doesn't mean it needs to be to your standard. What matters to you is going to matter to something different. Thankfully, the reason we've been so successful with this Airbnb is because of my wife. She puts fancy shampoos because she feels, as do I know, that people who stay in an Airbnb are going to want to feel like they're having a hotel-like experience. We put in purified water, toothbrushes, toothpaste, just make it very simple. We'll stock the fridge with waters and sodas sometimes, but mainly we just make it super clean and super neat. Again, take a look at this and show you. We did 3 different ceilings, and that's really cool. Nice refrigerator, big countertops, little girl at the island. Just kidding, Scarlett. This is one thing. So when we were originally gonna do our cabinets, we were gonna do like Home Depot cabinets, or no, we were gonna do like cabinets from this guy. He wanted to charge us like $30,000, and for the built-ins and all this stuff. And this is before I knew a ton about construction. So his price was super high. So I found actually a custom millwork company who actually milled it. So they basically did that, and you can tell we put the fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is the New Orleans Saints symbol. It's kind of like all things New Orleans. It's like a Catholic symbol. I don't know exactly what it means other than like saint or something. With the living room in here, we put a nice couch in. We've got all these nice stained doors. A little cozy backyard. Put a little hammock in there so people can lounge around. Little table, little swing right here. Barbecue, it's all fenced in. We're pet friendly. We like pets, so you can stay here too. Definitely be aware that if you're gonna buy nice stained doors, I've restained these things like 5 or 6 times, like literally paint them in the sun because it just wears them off. You got to restain them, redo that. They look great for about 6 months and then they start turning again. So this is the outside, and you can see the inside looks like the outside when the outside is done right. Really, the whole thing about this, the reason why we've been successful is all the amenities, the attention to detail, how clean things are. Let me show you in here. So we keep like nice high-end shampoos, high-end soaps, regular paper towels, regular bath tissue, extra supplies of towels, extra supplies of rugs, extra changes of bed sheets, nice beds. We really want people to feel like they're staying in a 5-star hotel when they come into this place. They're paying the price for it, so they should feel like that. Just like anything, this is one of our first ones. We made a lot of mistakes. I won't ever do pocket doors again. We did vessel sinks. That was a bad idea as well. But I can tell you that this place still rents to this day, even not on Airbnb. It rents to our current customer base of people who have stayed here in the past. We literally have a lady coming in to stay for like 90 days. Before COVID, this thing was profitable every year. COVID, we actually lost $26,000. But as you take the law of averages out for the last 5 years, we're way up. Sometimes you're gonna have a bad year in any investment, but COVID is something that nobody could predict. But things are picking right back up. We're pretty much booked out because of our great client base. But the reason we're booked up is because of all these cute details that my wife did and making it feel like a 5-star hotel. That's why people come here and that's why people stay here. And we've stayed at a lot of Airbnbs, and there's some really nice ones out there, and then there's some crappy ones. And we don't make guests clean up after themselves. There's some of these Airbnb hosts who are like, make sure you pull off the sheets, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. You know what? That's bad form. Don't do that with your Airbnb. Don't be boss around your guests who are paying big money to stay at your place. Make it as comfortable as possible for them. Make every experience great because they're paying for it. I'll tell you an incident that happened one time. We had DirecTV, and the DirecTV went out, and they weren't upset about it, but it was, obviously they're paying lots of money to stay at this house. So we ended up ordering them a catered breakfast. It cost us like $300. And boy, it sealed the deal. They were paying us $900 a night, and they stayed here for like a week. So if we lose $300 to make sure that we have a splendid review and that they come back, it's well worth it. So take care of your guests like you'd want to be taken care of, and then go further than that. Hire somebody who's a house manager who is going to perfect this thing, and it's going to be put back together exactly the way you want it. If you're gonna try to scale your Airbnb game, you're gonna lose some of your revenue. We have several Airbnbs, and I can tell you, my wife's hands-on, she won't let go, and that's why we're doing great. Now, we could scale. We don't wanna scale. We're using it as a lifestyle thing. So for us, it allows us to live in multiple locations and then generate revenues so that we don't lose money, we actually make money, and we get to go visit places that we enjoy staying. Airbnb is a great way for you to get involved in investing in real estate. And if you're serious about getting an Airbnb, make sure you go and study what the market's doing. Like, I'll tell you some markets I looked at. I looked at Gulfport, Mississippi, and the average rents were like between $45 and like $150. And then you had some that were like $2,000, $3,000, but you could see they had 1 or 2 reviews. You're gonna wanna look at how many reviews that they have. That means how many stays are they getting, right? And then you're gonna wanna look at what kind of price points are good. And then you're gonna look at their calendar. If their calendar's not full, they're not getting bookings. Or if their calendar's all the way booked up for the end of time, that's probably not accurate. If it's spotty and there's a couple dates here and there that are available, that's probably accurate. If their calendar's fully booked, it means that they're probably just have it off the market and they're not using it at that point in time, because a lot of people use Airbnb as a lifestyle to buy a second home, and it's a great way to offset your expenses. Like, for instance, if you're a big skier and you want to go skiing and you want to have a house in the mountains, but you're only going to go skiing 10 times that year, why not share that great experience with somebody else and make money? That's the reason to get an Airbnb. I would highly recommend you get alarm.com or Vivint or some sort of remote lock system where you can give your guests a unique code, and you could actually tell them, hey, we don't share your code with anybody. You have a unique code. That way, you can ensure that your house is not broken into. I would strongly recommend putting cameras on the outside of the property. Don't put cameras on the inside of the house. Bad, bad, bad. Put cameras on the outside of the house, put a gate up, make them feel safe, make them feel comfortable, and make them want to come back. That's what you really want. If you're new to real estate, you're new to Airbnbs, and you're new to the service industry, this is a service sector business. Your product is to provide a hotel-like experience in a house, because most of the people who are going to stay here are looking to stay with multiple families. I would tell you that you want to set it up so 3 families can stay there. That's really ideal, because that way you can get the big money. If it's a $100 house and 3 families are splitting up, Think about what your clientele is. And that's another important thing to talk about, making sure that you screen your guests. My wife and I have Airbnb accounts, but I've never stayed at any place on mine. So I went to go book one in Mexico and the guy denied me because I don't have any reviews. I think that's a good procedure. Because you're letting someone into your house, make sure you screen who you're letting into your house. Don't just be attracted to the money. There's lots of scams going on out there. There's lots of situations out there. It's hard to get people out of houses. Somebody could go move in and then you got to evict them, if you pick the wrong person in the wrong area. That's not going to happen if you do it through the portal, but it could happen. Look at the market and do your math. I'll just do a quick rule of thumb. I use 50% or lower for my occupancy rate. So I would suggest you do the same. Take that math at 50% lower and multiply that times the average nightly rent, daily rent, whatever you want to call it, and find out, is that going to exceed your mortgage and expenses and give you a profit with all the blankets, pillows, soap, everything? Is it going to make you money? And if it's not, don't do it. Understand what the city is. Where I live in Las Vegas, they hate Airbnbs. The hotel lobbies got the city officials taking their marching orders and they'll shut down your Airbnb in a heartbeat. Know your market, know where you're investing in Airbnbs, and definitely it's a good move. It's a great move to get started in real estate, but study it before you do it. There's also a thing called real estate hacking where you can sublease out a rental property. That's another way to get started. Obviously, you're gonna have to look at the rules and everything like that. They may have changed that things. Sometimes those things change, but there's other platforms that allow for it. So you may be able to not even have to buy a house. Maybe you rent a house for like 3 years and you Airbnb it, but make sure that you know that you're committed to that lease. So there's lots of ways to Airbnb. It's a great way to invest. I highly suggest you do so. I'm glad you got to check out my house. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.